A drug dealer wants to move narcotics, weapons, or cash in the United States. An informant, or perhaps an undercover agent, learns of the plans and alerts the secretive DEA unit called the Special Operations Division. The intelligence could also come from an NSA wiretap or electronic intercept. The Special Operations Division tells local or state police that they need to stop a certain truck at a certain place and time. Local police do that in a way that looks like a routine traffic stop, but a drug-sniffing dog is brought to the scene. If police find drugs, they arrest the driver. If the case goes to trial, cops know they can never say where the intel came from. They're under direct orders to not disclose it. Instead, they might say the investigation began with a routine traffic stop, a plausible story that creates a new investigative trail that won't lead back to the secret source. That's the parallel construction. What concerns some former prosecutors and judges is that by hiding the origin of the investigation, the DEA could be hiding evidence from the people arrested. This might jeopardize their constitutional right to a fair trial.
That was a discussion about parallel construction, which we're going to continue here on the Karen Hunter Show. And we're also, of course, going to talk about the DOJ's findings with the Baltimore Police Department. But let me welcome to the show our own legal eagle. We have our own legal eagle. She's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's charming, but she knows her stuff. She's a smart cookie. Our very own Thurgood Marshall, Madam Laura Coates.
Hey, I loved your last segment, especially the fact that if he didn't know before what a Karen Rebel did, he knows now that they will chin check.
Don't you love it?
And whether it be banking or the law, let me tell you, we appreciate the fact that the Karen listeners will hold us all accountable and be like, I know what they're saying. Let me see if it's true.
Yeah,
Tell that.
Listen, and I can't take credit for it because I just think people are attracted to, the kind of environment that we provide here. But and it's rare, accountability is rare today. We don't have too many people that are willing to pick up the phone. I cold call people all the time. That's how we did the whole flag thing. I'm like, I'm going to call Nikki Haley. I don't know her, but I'm calling Nikki, I'm just going to pick up the phone. I call City National. I didn't know these people. And it's ironic because the bank that the church that I do tithe to that I don't go to, actually banks with them, but I didn't have any relationship with them. I never met this man before, but I feel because I'm, partially antisocial, but I think that it's so important that if we need to get from here to there and we have information that we need to gather, that no one should be afraid to pick up the phone and ask. And whether it's me, it's not just me, anybody can do it because I'm just Jane Q Public today. You know what I'm saying? But,
well, Karen, that's the perfect segue for what you just played for parallel construction because, you always talk about the fact that knowledge is power and you have to ask questions. So one of the most important ways to ask questions and the basis of it is you have to know what you don't know. And when it comes to this theory of parallel construction where you have the NSA giving information to the DEA and other agents and not actually telling the defendants themselves why they were really stopped or that they were already, they weren't necessarily profiled just racially. It was you in particular we were going after, and we found a back door to validate it. Well, a defense attorney doesn't even know what he doesn't know to even question whether that initial information was constitutional, was right, or was fair. So if I could unpack it a little bit, could I for a second?
Please, because, Jameson came in, he was hot. He was hot. It was like this parallel construction, and Jameson talks really fast.
I know,
faster than I do, which is amazing.
With the little beard moving.
Yeah,
and everything.
it's amazing. But for a young person growing up, you see why so many people are angry and frustrated because there are things going on outside of our control that people are spying on us every single day and infringing on our rights, and it makes you angry as an American citizen. So please unpack it.
It does. So here's what it is. Look, most of the time when a prosecutor or officer has a case against somebody, say through a traffic stop, you know what? You have a busted taillight, you were speeding, you were swerving, whatever it is. I'm going to pull you over as an officer and I'm going to investigate. Oh, and lo and behold, I smell something coming from your car. Now I smell some marijuana or something that's going on and I know what it is. Or I see a red Solo cup and I look in it and I know that it's alcohol call inside for whatever reason, or I see a gun handle underneath your car seat, and so I then want to search it. Everyone's got to get out. It's a traffic stop. You got to get out of the car. You all know this from reading You Have the Right, Karen? They know this information about what their rights are for a traffic stop, and the officer has them out. They say, you know what? I got probable cause there's drugs in here. Let me call a dog sniffer. I can't get into your trunk unless I have a real reason. So you know what? Here we go. I've got a dog. I found the drugs. Now I'm going to prosecute and bring it to a prosecutor. But here's what parallel construction is. Rather than an officer simply coming upon, through their normal duties and normal patrolling, coming upon somebody who's swerving or speeding or driving erratically in some way, they actually have a tip from the NSA. And the NSA, of course, is the big brother that watches us all. You may have heard of Edward Snowden. It's the big brother of the world that's watching everybody through surveillance. And NSA actually had contacted the police department and said, by the way, you're getting ready to have a black Chevrolet license plate, WXXX, whatever it is. They're going to be coming down on MLK Boulevard. They're coming from a drug operation we just happened to wiretap or hear about. There's definitely drugs in the car. So now there is a conjured up reason why the officer says, okay, I got to figure out a reason to stop this car. I know I got good information. I know I'm going to get an arrest, and I know I'm going to find drugs in this car. What do I have here? Oh, they did not signal a turn from one lane to another, or they're going to pretend there's a reason, and they stop. Now, when it goes to trial, Karen, and you go to a prosecutor, and the prosecutor says, officer, what made you stop them in the first place? As in, was there even probable cause? And they say, well, yes, like they have a script. They know exactly what they needed to say, because one thing they cannot say is that they got a tip off from the NSA. Instead, they have to follow a script that essentially says, well, I was observing on my normal traffic stop. I saw a man who was driving a vehicle. At that point, did not know, blah, 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 driving erratically, found drugs, case closed in the form of a conviction. So what people are having a problem with, and what they should have a problem with, and what prosecutors have a problem with, is oftentimes even the prosecution doesn't know where this information is coming from, because the officers cannot tell you, because there's a relationship of a scratching backs that happens between different agencies. And if you think it's just the police who does it with the DEA or the FBI, the IRS knows about stuff as well. They get tips from the NSA. Different agencies Homeland Security get tips from the NSA. And it's one of the things that people look away from and say, well, look, we have information. As long as we're finding some alternative legal means to find the information, all's well that ends well.
So
now,
this is legal? Is legal lying? They can legally do this without any recourse?
Well, they don't think it's lying, and technically it's not lying, because what they're doing is finding there's an independent reason, right? So that's how they get away with it, and you have it going all the way up to Solicitor General, and it's something that the Supreme Court will be looking into, because it's an issue that's coming up now. Now people know that there is a back door, but what the police officers do to escape having a violation, or the NSA and the different agencies, is this. Look, I could tell you, Karen, there are drugs in that house. There are human trafficking going on in the basement of that home. I'm telling you, I know that there is. And now I'm telling you, as police department, and what you do is, okay, I'm going to get surveillance. I'm going to find some reason why I should get into that house and execute a warrant. I'm going to go to a judge and say, look, we have reason to believe the following things are happening. Here's the evidence that we have obtained independently. And so the NSA becomes a tip, like an informant or like a snitch on the corner.
So what recourse do you have? And I bring this up because Philando Castillo was pulled over like a ridiculous number of times.
Yes.
Okay. And the reason this last time when he was shot 4 times and killed was because he fit the description.
Yes.
Is it possible that he didn't fit a description, but they knew absolutely that this young man might have had something that they got a tip from somebody and pulled him over, and now he's dead?
I mean, it's possible. I don't have information about to that degree. That's one theory that I think that has been floating, and certainly you have expressed it. But I think that the bigger issue that people have to deal with is instead of the isolated incidents, it's about as a defense bar, and a defense bar is was the term used to describe all defense attorneys. As a defense bar and as a proactive prosecutor, because you could lose your license if an officer knows information and has not related to you that somehow is considered Brady. What's Brady? Brady is any type of evidence that could help a defendant prove his or her innocence. It's considered exculpatory. Inculpatory means anything that's going to incriminate you, and exculpatory means whether you're going to how you can get out of the problem. So, prosecutors, police officers, anybody involved in the investigation or prosecution at any federal or any state level has a responsibility to turn over any information to the defense that may help them get off. But here's the problem. When you have parallel construction, many defense attorneys don't know about it. And they know there is a reasonable, independent investigation that went on from the officer that's going to say, hey, I found this out on my own, and I got a warrant, correctly, et cetera. But now what has to happen in order to get recourse is defendants have to be proactive and finding out precisely the origins of whatever information, not just getting the initial hunch, but is there any, and asking the question, is there any other basis for which you found out about this location, or was there any other basis you used to apply for and execute the search warrant? Asking that simple question, again, what you don't know, tell me what I don't know, is the difference between having a constitutional conviction and one that could be overturned. Because if the government had information that maybe it wasn't accurate, maybe it was a different color Chevy, maybe it was a different house, maybe something else happened, maybe you weren't the actual target, whatever it is, and now they've gone on a witch hunt and fishing expedition against you, that can undermine the credibility in front of a jury. And sometimes that's all you need to avoid a conviction.
So, as a former prosecutor,
Mm-hmm.
You know all sides of this, right? When a person comes in the court, and you, one of the things I really like that you put in the book was that in your role as a prosecutor, even though your job was to provide justice on behalf of the state, you also looked out for the guy on the other side who may not have had great legal representation, and you took it upon yourself as a woman from the community to say, this guy's getting a bad deal here, and I'm not going to send him to jail. I'm going to pull his coat, or at least tell his lawyer something, which I had a tremendous amount of respect, because most prosecutors just want wins. How do we, navigate this parallel construction thing, and what do you tell people who keep getting pulled over by the cops and it just seems ridiculous?
You have to first, there's two things, and one is when you have your defense attorney, you have to make sure that they're asking the questions about the source of information. They cannot just go, the buck does not stop with the officer during the traffic stop. It doesn't just stop with, all of a sudden we executed a warrant on a home. Where did you get the information from? Was there any alternative way that you got the information? And sometimes what's happening now on the trend is that the prosecutors or the police officer will come up with that's classified. Well, that's a signal that that the information came from some independent source, most likely the NSA or some other entity. So the defense lawyer has to actually ask the question, number one. But number two, and while there are many prosecutors who were like myself, who I think served the community well, and tried to look out for people as all representatives of the United States, one of the ways that people can have their feet to the fire is because, as I said, a prosecutor may be moved by altruistic reasons, but what one hand of the government doing, the entire body is responsible for. So there's that Brady thing is very, very powerful, because if for some reason the prosecutor not just the office they work for, the police department that they were, in hands with. If the prosecutor is prosecuting a case and there is some discovery along the road that they did not turn over that would have helped the defendant in any way, may it be a name, an alias, a wrong date, an information, the weather, whatever it is, that may have helped the person, and you didn't turn it over, you will lose your bar license. You will no longer practice law. And so that's how defense bars and that's how other prosecutors are motivated as well to say, look, I've got to do my due diligence, and that's how you really where the distinction between prosecutors and police officers really is. People have the impression that we're all in the same bed. But let me tell you, there's nothing more divisive than when you know that the person you're talking to damn well better be as honest as possible, otherwise your lifeline is cut off. It makes you inherently suspicious of even the officers, and you have to do your own investigation as well. So it's twofold. But the number one thing is your defense attorney has got to request through discovery information on the original source of information that led that officer to you.
When you don't know what you don't know, it leaves you in a completely powerless situation. And I appreciate that little nugget right there. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Jameson, for being all hot.
Yeah, no, Jameson is hot and bothered about this because he said, I could be next. I need to know. No, I'm just playing. You were hot and bothered about this DOJ thing. When I saw your Twitter page, I was like, and folks, follow Laura Coates on Twitter because not only is she interesting to follow on Twitter, but she's actually active. So if you ask her a question, like Torrin Ellis, most of our contributors, they will respond to you when you give them questions. So she's the Laura Coates, THE Laura Coates on Twitter. I tweeted out her Twitter handle because we're trying to build our power base here. And we need strength in numbers. So let's follow her, follow Torrin Ellis, follow us, Karen Hunter, follow Cousin Sil.